My name's Devon. Today I own several multi-million dollar companies. We started with $5,000 in a credit card. I don't know the easy way. I only know the hard way. Welcome, everyone, to the Whiteboard Entrepreneur Podcast, where I give straightforward advice for the entrepreneur in all of us. I'm Devon Dickinson, and today I'm going to talk about, are you the leader, are you the entrepreneur that you want to be? And again, this is a bit of a, I'll use the term Yoda type of teaching because this is not something that I think if 10 people hear, all 10 people are going to hear something different, but it's going to be personal to you. And the example that I'm going to use is I've got a phone call not too long ago from a friend of mine, and this person was sharing that, you know, they had a family member that had worked for them. They had worked for them for years. And the person was sharing all of the different things that they had done for this family member who was also an employee. And, you know, I kind of saw where this was going because I've heard this story a lot, but by the end, it's like, hey, we've done all of this as a company for this person. You know, I love them. They're my family member. I want the best for them. And finally, you know, they quit, or we had to let them go, or whatever the story is. And then they just went away fuming mad and saying all of this negative stuff about me that just isn't true, and blah, 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 blah. Right. And so listen, I know that there's always two sides to every story, right? So I'm sure, you know, we're never perfect, right? As the entrepreneur, the owner, the leader, whatever, right? So I don't want you to sit there and start making your list of all these people that, you know, have wronged you, right? Because again, like I said, there is two sides, and most of the time we need to first reflect upon what we've done. But the point of this teaching and the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I went through this, and I was sharing with this person that as I heard them talk, I heard them go from very this open, compassionate to, compassion that they had for their people, for their employees, to all of a sudden this kind of bitterness, screw them. Fine, if they're going to be this way, I'm going to treat all my employees, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter what I do. Therefore, I'm just going to be a tyrant. And since they're going to act that way, this is what they're going to get, period. Right. And I shared with them that this is what I went through, at stages in my life, because I like to think, and I think most people would say this about me, is that I'm a vulnerable, open person. And I like to be, I like that about me. I want to be the person that overshares, that's overly compassionate, overly open. And I want to be that person that really tries to do to others what they want done to them. And that's really how I try to live and lead my life. Now, again, I'm not perfect. And I'm sure there's someone watching going, oh, I know you, Devon, you did this, you did that, you blah, blah, blah. Right. So again, and you're probably right. Right? Because I'm sure there's a laundry list of things that I've done wrong. But at least in my mind, that's who I am. Again, am I perfect? No, but that's who I am. Well, I had gone through this, and there was all of these different hurtful experiences of my life where people that worked for me just did wrong and just said things that were hurtful and, blah, 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 all of these different, attacks that I felt against me. And so as the seasons went on, I began to change who I was from this vulnerable, open kind of person to the pendulum swung, if you will, till I became a bitter, cynical, closed off, walled off person that I was like, I'm not letting my employees hurt me. I'm not letting them get close. I'm not going to let them take advantage. I'm going to keep them at an arm's distance. And I lived there, and this wasn't like a couple weeks of bad weeks or whatever. I lived as that person for probably 18 months to 2 years until I had this revelation, this moment where I realized that that's who I had become. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, I don't like that person at all. I don't like who I've become. And, I try to do the blame game. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm this because people are that and blah, blah, blah. And I realized it didn't matter. Like, whether it was justified, whether it was unjustified, whatever it was, I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be closed off. I didn't want to be cynical. I didn't want to not trust people. I didn't want any of that. And so I made a conscious decision that I would rather be vulnerable and open and to get hurt than be cynical and closed off and not be hurt and not let people in. And so what I kind of swung back. And then what I realized is that not only if I live here, if I live vulnerable and open, I also at some point have to be mentally tough. And I realize this because there's a maturity to that, right? Because it doesn't mean today that I've been attacked less, so that people haven't said things. And again, I'm not saying it's always their fault, right? Because I'm sure I have blame in it. But what I realized is that that if I was going to live vulnerable and open, I had to be mentally tough. And I had to realize that going into this, that it was going to happen. That if I lived over here, I was going to hear things that hurt my feelings. I was going to hear things that weren't true, that were flat out lies. I was going to deal with accusations, and I was going to have to even lawsuits. I mean, you name it, all of the things that leaders have to go through. But I had to realize going into it that I had to be mentally tough. And when I began to know that those things would happen, when I began to say, you know what, I don't care if they happen, they're not going to change me. I don't care if they're going to happen. I'm going to realize that I've also made mistakes too. I don't care if they're going to happen. Someone could be, a great employee or best friend. And if they have 2 beers, maybe they make a joke and say something about you that they shouldn't have. But you know what? I've done that too, right? And so we all have. And so I realized that I needed to get more mentally tough. I didn't need to become a cynic. I needed to be who I was, but I needed to be mentally tough as a leader. Because, the best president in the world, I'm not going to say who the best president is because I don't know, right? But if there was the best president ever, no matter what decision that president makes, 51% of the people are going to love it. 49% of the people are going to hate it, right? And that's just the way it is. And that's the way it is in leadership. And as a leader or as a president, they have to make the decision that they believe is right. And they can't let what other people say affect who they become. And you can't let what other people say affect who you become. You can't let it affect your decision making. You certainly cannot let it change your personality into someone that you don't want to be. And so going back to my story, I shared this with my friend. I said, listen, you're in a dangerous place because I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but you're at a crossroads in your life. You can let this situation turn you into jaded and turn you into a cynic and turn you into someone that's going to be closed off, not let your employees in, not let relationships develop. And you know what? Probably you'll be protected and you probably won't have as many hurtful situations. Or you can choose to be who you want to be. You can live vulnerable. You can live open, and these situations will continue to happen. But you can mentally change your mind to be mentally tough. Know that they're going to happen. Prepare yourself ahead of time and be able to deal with it so that you know that no matter what happens, the external situations will not change who you internally are. And I hope this helps. And again, like I said, this was going to be a little on the Yoda side, as much and a little less practical, but I'm sure that as I've been talking, you've been thinking about people that have done this, right? You've been thinking about situations that have hurt you. And I think, especially as a leader, we don't like to say, oh, I got hurt. Right? We like to say oh, they pissed me off. Right. But really what happened was you got hurt. Right. And so my challenge to you is, number one, like I said, first off, recognize that you're not perfect, right? In anything, there's something that you can learn from. And so, use this opportunity to reflect and say, hey, is there something I could have done differently? And oftentimes there is. But even if there is or there isn't, do not allow these type of situations to change you. Realize that if you are a leader, if you have employees, if you're in a position of leadership or management or whatever that is, you are going to have these situations happen. That's it, period. It's just going to happen. Know that it's going to happen, but prepare yourself ahead of time. Be mentally tough and have the mental fortitude to not allow it change who you are as a person and as a leader. You can help it. You can allow it to help develop your decision making and make better decisions, but do not allow it to change fundamentally at the core who you are. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us today on the Whiteboard Entrepreneur Podcast, where, as always, we give straightforward advice for the entrepreneur in all of us. I'm Devon Dickinson. Have a great day.